Hello, everyone. My name is Kathy Barnette, and I am still your candidate for Congress for the 4th Congressional District of Pennsylvania. There is a massive and deliberate effort to force you and I to just get over it and to just move on past this election, to accept what the Democrats, mainstream media, and many others are calling the inevitable. Well, I am here to remind you of a couple of things. I had the opportunity to sit through the legislative hearings that Senator Doug Mastriano held in Gettysburg the day before Thanksgiving. I heard more than 10 witnesses come and share what they saw, what they heard, and what they experienced the day on, the days before, and the days after November 3rd. And I found that those 10 witnesses were more credible than Christine Blasey Ford. Do you guys remember her? She's the one that Democrats brought before the American people to accuse now Justice Brett Kavanaugh of some very heinous behavior. Well, I found those 10 witnesses to be far more credible than her. I also found those 10 witnesses to offer more direct evidence than any Democrat has ever offered any of us concerning the impeachment of President Donald Trump over a phone call that he had with the president of Ukraine. Those 10 witnesses, they presented more credible evidence than we ever received during the Russian hoax. I heard more clear allegations being made by those 10 witnesses than I ever heard my opponent and others give when they dragged Attorney General Bill Barr before the nation and indeed the world over that ruse of an investigation. There was more concrete facts presented by those 10 witnesses than I've ever heard given in regards to General Flynn. Do you really think that those who gave us the Russian hoax, the Ukrainian impeachment, who received billions of dollars from China, millions of dollars from Russia, who have information on a laptop detailing the exploits of Hunter Biden, do you really think that those people are going to come and now pat us on the head and say, job well done, you figured it out? Do you ever think that they're going to acknowledge the very clear evidence that is before them? We must stop looking for Democrats to affirm us. The media, Democrats, and others run around continuously screaming, telling us that we don't have any evidence, that we have very little evidence, that whatever evidence we do have is Frankenstein-like, and that it's all stitched together. I listened to these 10 witnesses, which are only a small portion of the witnesses that the legal team of President Trump has told us that they have and will provide. And what I found was they presented themselves as very credible enough that any rational person should give pause to what is now being rushed and thrown upon us as inevitable. Let's pivot for a moment and not look at what the president is presenting and alleging. Let's just look at my election, just my election alone, and not that of the president. I had a number of poll watchers who were not allowed to go in and examine and observe the ballots. In fact, thousands of ballots were pre-canvassed, handled, sorted, counted without anyone representing me. That's a problem. It's a problem, especially when you understand the role of a poll watcher. A poll watcher is there that at the end of the day, regardless of what the results are, we will walk away saying their election was fair. But that doesn't happen when the poll watcher is buffeted, intimidated, not given access to the room. And when they are given access, they are corralled into a room hundreds of feet away from where the ballots are actually being handled and forced to try to observe the ballots through a pixelated screen. This is going to be a newsflash to many. Poll watchers are not suggestions. They are the law. And so poll watchers not having access is a problem. And those ballots should not be counted when you don't have a Republican and a Democrat in the room observing those particular ballots. That's not a suggestion, people. That's the law. Just in my election alone, we had dead people voting. Yes, we had several hundred dead people who voted and have been identified as voting just in my election alone. Over 22,276 people who are 70 years old and older voted for the very first time all across Pennsylvania. Over 3,000 people participated in my election, who are not on the voter roll, which is a problem because the voter roll tells us who is allowed to vote. And when you have over 3,000 people who are not on the voter roll participating in the election, that's a problem. We have already identified over a third of those people as having voted and over half of that third being foreigners. Again, that's a problem. That's a problem. And we must not allow ourselves to be manipulated and persuaded that we can fix the irregularities and all of the egregious behavior for the next election. No, we must demand justice in this election. On our side of the political aisle, we have some really decent people. We don't riot. We don't loot. We don't go out burning down people's private property. We don't go dragging people's children into the middle of the street, stomping on their head until they go unconscious, as we saw on the other side of the political aisle. Days before the election, we saw businesses board up their establishment, not because they feared retribution from us. No, that's not how that works. So instead of seeking relief in the street, our side of the political aisle is doing exactly what the Constitution affords us the right and the ability to do. And that is to take our case before the courts and to seek relief through the law. That is exactly what we're doing. The problem, however, that we're facing is that on one hand, we have activist judges who are bent on inflicting their will onto the people. And then on the other hand, we have judges and legislators who are really good people who want to do the right thing, but for whatever reason, they lack either the courage and or the spine to do the right thing. And for very obvious reasons. There's very obvious reasons why those who are really good people who want to do the right thing may opt out of doing the right thing. We have seen what happens when the left does not like you, and it is not pretty. We have seen two very large law firms who are representing the most powerful man in the world, President Trump, stop providing legal services to the president as a direct result of the intimidation from the left. We have seen Linda Kearns, for example, the latest victim who has fallen prey to the intimidation of the left, stop representing the president because of harassing calls that they will destroy her livelihood. In fact, she received one such phone call from a member of the firm who is representing Joe Biden right now. It's crazy where we find ourselves today. Here is the call to action for you. We need you to call your legislator in Pennsylvania, in Harrisburg, and tell them to stand up. Tell them we do not trust what happened with these votes and that we want them to take action to pick the electors. It is their constitutional right to do so. Call them and encourage them strongly to take back their constitutional right and do what is necessary. There has been enough irregularities shown, just in my election alone. But most definitely, if you take the irregularities and the egregious behavior that happened in my election alone and you extrapolate it out across this state, we have a problem. And it's not just the end result that we have a problem with, but it is the process that got us to the end result. If real consequences are not brought upon those who practice some very blatant and egregious behavior, I fear we will never have another free and fair election again. What we're walking through right now is so much bigger than my individual race. It is so much bigger than even the president's race. This is about the survival of our republic, and I do not believe that I am practicing hyperbole when I say that. If not you, then who? If not now, then when are you going to stand up and protect our nation? For the overwhelming majority of us, there is nowhere else for us to go. Most of us in this country don't have that luxury. This is it for us. Many of you also are concerned that our nation is heading toward a civil war. Here's a newsflash for you. Our nation has been engaged in a civil war for the past 4 years, brought on chiefly by the left. And they have used some unconventional weapons to inflict havoc onto our nation. They have weaponized various mediums to intimidate people, to marginalize people, to ridicule people, to destroy people's livelihoods, to cancel people, and to intimidate people. Do not grow weary. Stand. Call your legislators. Monday is the last day. Thank you.